a Mistress, an unlimited black card, and the keys to the most exclusive penthouse suite in the city. Chloe Sinclair thought she had it all. She was checking into the 5-star Serafina Grand, ready to replace the boring wife of her wealthy lover, Richard Andrea. She ordered $1,000 champagne, she called for private designer fittings, and she mocked the woman she was displacing. She thought she was the queen of Richard's world. But she made one fatal mistake. She never asked who exactly owned the castle. Eleanor Andrea knew the precise texture of the ceiling in her master bedroom. She had counted the subtle imperfections in the Venetian plaster 198 times, once for every night she had lain awake, listening to the empty space beside her, or worse, the sound of her husband, Richard, breathing the deep, untroubled sleep of a man without a conscience. To the world, they were the Andreas. Richard was a lion of Wall Street, a private equity shark who stalked the pages of Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. Eleanor was his perfect wife, poised, elegant, and tragically underestimated. She chaired galas for the Met, she organized fundraisers for the Philharmonic, and she smiled, always smiled, as Richard accepted accolades for his success. What the world didn't know, and what Richard had conveniently forgotten, was that Eleanor wasn't his. She was her own. Before she was Mrs. Andrea, she was Eleanor Hayes, the visionary who had, at the age of 28, leveraged a small inheritance into the seed money for a single, failing boutique hotel. Now, 15 years later, the Andrea Hotel Group, a name she'd allowed him to suggest to placate his ego, was a global behemoth. The flagship, the Serafina Grand in New York, was her crown jewel, a place so exclusive that it didn't advertise. It didn't need to. Richard, meanwhile, was getting sloppy. He had a new project, a 25-year-old named Chloe Sinclair. Chloe was all sharp angles, high-gloss lipstick, and an ambition so naked it was almost pathetic. She was, in every way, the opposite of Eleanor. "I'm flying to Geneva tonight, darling," Richard announced over breakfast, not looking up from his tablet. "The consortium deal, it's reached a critical stage." Eleanor sipped her tea. She knew for a fact the consortium deal had closed last Tuesday. She also knew that Geneva was code. "That's wonderful, Richard. Will you be long?" 3, maybe 4 days. Don't wait up." He stood, adjusting the cuffs of his bespoke $10,000 Brioni suit. He paused, looking at her with a flicker of... what? Annoyance? "By the way, I need you to just stay out of the city for a few days. Why don't you go up to the house in the Hamptons? The sea air will do you good." "The Hamptons? In November?" she asked, her voice perfectly neutral. "Just do it, Eleanor. I'm trying to simplify things." He kissed the air near her cheek and was gone. The simplification he was referring to was currently scrolling through Instagram. Chloe Sinclair was in her tiny, sterile white apartment, packing a Rimowa suitcase. Her phone buzzed. It was Richard. Chloe squealed. Not the card? An hour later, a messenger delivered a small, heavy, black envelope. Inside was an Amex Centurion card, the black card. But this one was special. It was made of the dark, anodized titanium, and it bore his name, Richard D. Andrea. Her phone buzzed again. Chloe's hands were shaking. The Serafina Grand, the presidential suite. It was the most expensive room in New York, rumored to be $20,000 a night. She looked at the card. Richard D. Andrea. She felt a jolt of pure, triumphant power. She texted back. Richard, sitting in his Maybach in a private parking garage, smirked. Using the Serafina was a delicious irony. He knew Eleanor loved that little project of hers. He thought she was on some minor advisory board, or maybe owned a small, sentimental fraction. He had no idea her name was on the deed, the corporate charter, and every single payroll check. He thought this was a power move, a way to rub his new life in the face of his old one. He was, in a word, an idiot, and his idiocy was about to be put on public display. The Serafina Grand did not have a lobby. It had a great hall. The ceiling soared 40 feet, adorned with a custom Chihuly glass installation that dripped light like liquid gold. The air smelled faintly of white tea and peonies. The staff, dressed in impeccably tailored dark grey uniforms, moved with the silent, purposeful grace of ballet dancers. Chloe Sinclair, in contrast, clattered. She arrived in a cab, not a town car, and her Rimowa suitcase was slightly scuffed. She had overdone her makeup, and her faux fur jacket looked cheap under the hall's strategic, museum-quality lighting. She was trying to look like she belonged, but she was vibrating with a frequency of cheap perfume and desperate need. She marched to the front desk, cutting in front of a German couple who were quietly admiring the art. Chloe Sinclair, checking in, presidential suite. The man at the desk, Mr. Harrison, was the general manager. He was a tall man with silver hair and eyes that had seen princesses throw tantrums and billionaires weep. He offered a serene, polite smile. "Of course, Miss Sinclair. Welcome to the Serafina Grand. May I have a name for the reservation?" "It's under Sinclair, but it was booked by Richard Andrea," she said, emphasizing his name as if it were a weapon. "The bill goes to him. He's my fiancé." Mr. Harrison's smile did not waver, but his eyes hardened by a fraction of a degree. "Fiancé? That was new. Very good, Miss Sinclair. We will require a card for incidentals." "He gave me this." Chloe slammed the black Amex Centurion card onto the marble desk. The clack of the metal on the stone was obscene in the quiet hall. Mr. Harrison picked it up. He looked at the name, Richard D. Andrea. He then looked at his reservation screen. The booking had indeed been made by Mr. Andrea's office, but the payment was flagged. "A beautiful piece, isn't it?" Chloe said, misinterpreting his pause. "He lets me use it for everything." "I see," Mr. Harrison said. He knew exactly who Richard D. Andrea was, and he knew, with chilling certainty, who he was married to. Mrs. Andrea, the woman who had personally designed his uniform, the woman who knew every single one of her 300 staff members by name, the woman who was, at this very moment, in a board meeting on the 50th floor. "Is there a problem?" Chloe snapped, her voice rising. "Run the card. I have places to be." "No problem at all, Ms. Sinclair." Mr. Harrison processed the check-in. "We have you in our top suite. It has a private elevator. Charles," he motioned to a bellman, "please escort Ms. Sinclair to the penthouse." The suite was breathtaking. It was 4,000 square feet of floor-to-ceiling windows, a baby grand piano in the corner, a private terrace with a heated infinity pool, and a staff of 2 on call. Chloe was alone. She spun in a circle, giddy. "This is my life now," she shouted to the empty room. She immediately got to work. She picked up the in-room phone. "Room service? I want a bottle of the Dom Perignon Rosé, the 1998 vintage, and the caviar selection, all of it." "Yes, Miss Sinclair, that will be $2,400. "Perfect." Click. She dialed again. "The spa. I want a 4-hands massage, a diamond dust facial, and I want the therapist to come here. Now. Our in-suite services start at $5,000. "Whatever." Click. She dialed a third time. "Concierge, get me the personal shopper from the hotel boutique, the one with the Bottega display. I want them to bring a rack of new arrivals. Size 2, and some jewelry. Cartier. No, Graf. Go big." "Immediately, Ms. Sinclair." Within an hour, the suite was a chaotic mess of champagne corks, designer bags, and spa oils. Chloe, wrapped in a plush fret robe monogrammed with the hotel's crest, was on her phone, taking a selfie with the black card held next to her face, careful to obscure the numbers, and the New York skyline glittering behind her. She posted it. Living the life I deserve. Serafina gan queen gan upgrade, Eleanor. She tagged the Serafina Grand. Down in the lobby, Mr. Harrison's terminal beeped, a notification. He clicked it. The hotel's social media manager had flagged the post. He looked at the picture. He looked at the hashtags. Oh dear, he murmured. He picked up his own private line, one that bypassed all assistants. Mrs. Andrea? I do apologize for disturbing your meeting. Situation has arisen in the penthouse that requires your immediate attention. No, ma'am, no one is in danger. At least, not physically. But I believe you will want to see this. It involves Mr. Andrea's Centurion card and a Ms. Chloe Sinclair. Eleanor Andrea stood in front of a whiteboard, sketching out a complex diagram of yield management and acquisitions for the new London property. She was in her element, a boardroom on the 50th floor, her executive team hanging on her every word. She was sharp, incisive, and utterly in command. This was the real Eleanor. Her private phone buzzed. She never, ever took calls in these meetings. But she saw the caller ID, Harrison, Lobby 1. She held up a hand. Excuse me, gentlemen. One moment. She stepped into her private anteroom. Mr. Harrison, I'm in the middle of the London pitch. This had better be important. My apologies, Mrs. Andrea. Harrison's voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of steel. A guest has checked into the presidential suite, a Ms. Chloe Sinclair. She checked in using Mr. Andrea's corporate Centurion card. Eleanor went perfectly still. The world seemed to narrow to the sound of Harrison's voice. His corporate card? The one tied to the holding company? Yes, ma'am. The one for which you are the primary account holder, and he is merely a secondary user. A slow, cold fury began to build in Eleanor's chest. It was one thing to be a faithless, lying pig. It was another thing entirely to be a stupid one. He wasn't just cheating. He was using her money, the money from her company, to do it. In her hotel. And, Harrison continued, the guest is prolific. In the last 90 minutes, she has charged $2,400 in champagne, $5,000 in spa services, and has just completed a $42,000 purchase from the in-house Graf boutique, which she put on the room. Eleanor almost laughed. The sheer, breathtaking audacity. $42,000. She also, ma'am, tagged the hotel in a social media post. The caption reads, Living the life I deserve, followed by upgrade and, I am sorry to say, by Eleanor. The line was silent for a full 10 seconds. Mr. Harrison waited. Mr. Harrison, Eleanor said finally, her voice so cold it could have formed icicles. I want you to do two things. First, you will not, under any circumstances, decline that card. You will approve every single charge Ms. Sinclair makes. Does she want another diamond bracelet? Give it to her. Does she want to bathe in vintage champagne? Send up a case. I want a precise, itemized list of every penny she spends, sent to my personal email every 30 minutes. Ma'am, Harrison was taken aback, but the charges are an investment, Mr. Harrison, an investment in my future. Second, I want you to activate the owner's protocol for the presidential suite. Now Harrison was truly shocked. The owner's protocol was a top-tier security measure, reserved for visiting royalty and heads of state. It meant that every staff interaction was logged, and discrete, high-definition audio and video, in the common areas of the suite only, like the living room and entryway, for guest security, were monitored and recorded directly by the head of security. Mrs. Andrea, are you certain? Activate it. I want a full, unassailable record of Ms. Sinclair's stay. I want to know every person she calls, every brag she makes. I am particularly interested in any conversations she has with Mr. Andrea. Understood, Mrs. Andrea. And Mr. Andrea himself? Richard thinks he's in Geneva. He told me his flight lands tonight. He'll likely show up at the hotel around 9 p.m., expecting a romantic welcome. Please ensure that when he arrives, he's directed to the bar, not the suite. Tell him there's a plumbing emergency in the penthouse, and Ms. Sinclair has been temporarily moved. Stall him. And Ms. Sinclair? Let her enjoy her afternoon. Let her feel, for just a few more hours, like she's the queen. The fall is always so much more dramatic from a great height. Eleanor hung up. She walked back into the boardroom. Her team looked at her, expecting her to resume the London pitch. She smiled, a sharp, brilliant smile they had never seen before. Gentlemen, a slight change of plans. The London deal is perfect. We'll sign. She snapped her laptop shut. Barbara, she said to her assistant, clear my schedule for the rest of the day, and get my personal attorney on the line, the head of our litigation department. Tell him I have a breach of contract case, and it's going to be the easiest win of his career. For the next 6 hours, Chloe Sinclair lived a life she had only seen in movies. She drank the 98 rosé, took a dozen selfies, and paraded around the suite in a $12,000 Balenciaga gown she'd selected from the rack, all while 2 spa therapists worked on her hands and feet. She called her best friend Brenda. The owner's protocol was active, and the microphone near the living room bar picked up every word. "Brenda, you will not believe this," Chloe shrieked, her voice slurring slightly from the champagne. "The presidential suite. I'm looking at the whole of Central Park. Richard he's just divine. He's leaving her. He's finally leaving that boring, dried-up, old stick of a wife." "No." Brenda's voice crackled on the speakerphone. "Yes, he gave me his black card. It's unlimited. I just bought a Graf diamond necklace. Just because." She giggled. "I think he's going to propose. He's showing up tonight. He's landing from Geneva. It's our code. God, I can't wait to see her face when she's served the papers. She's going to have nothing. He built that hotel empire, you know. She just, cuts ribbons." In the security office, Mr. Harrison and Eleanor's head of security, a stoic ex-NYPD detective named Frank, listened. Frank just shook his head. "She's loud." "She's an idiot," Harrison said. "Keep the recordings. Send the feed." Meanwhile, Richard Andrea was having a far less luxurious day. He was, in fact, stuck in traffic on the FDR Drive. He was smug, feeling like the king of the world. He had successfully lied to his wife, set up his mistress in the most opulent suite in town, and was about to have a weekend of consequence-free debauchery. He genuinely believed that Eleanor's little hotel business was small time. He'd never paid attention to her quarterly reports or her AGMs. He just saw it as a hobby that kept her busy while he made the real money. At 9:02 p.m., Richard Andrea strode into the Serafina Grand. He was expecting to be whisked upstairs. Instead, he was intercepted by Mr. Harrison. "Mr. Andrea, a pleasure as always," Harrison said smoothly. "Harrison, no time. Just point me to the private elevator for the penthouse. Ms. Sinclair is waiting for me." "Ah," Harrison said, his face a perfect mask of professional regret. "There appears to be a situation. A pipe burst in the penthouse an hour ago. It's a terrible mess. We've had to move Miss Sinclair." Richard's face darkened. "A pipe burst? In your hotel? I'm paying $20,000 a night for a pipe? These old buildings, sir. Unpredictable. Ms. Sinclair is quite distressed. We've moved her to one of our terrace suites, but she's at the spa trying to recover from the shock. She asked if you would wait for her in the Onyx Bar. She'll meet you there as soon as she's composed." Richard huffed. "Fine. A terrace suite? This is unacceptable. But fine. Tell her to hurry up. And my drink," he snapped, "is a Macallan 25, on the rocks. Have it waiting." "Of course, Mr. Andrea." Richard stormed off to the bar. Mr. Harrison watched him go. He then turned to the bellman. "See that Mr. Andrea is entertained. Keep his glass full, and under no circumstances is he to leave that bar." In the bar, Richard ordered his scotch, then another. He texted Chloe. In the penthouse, Chloe, 3/4 of the way through her second bottle of champagne, looked at the text. "Dump? Bar? What is he talking about?" She texted back. Richard's phone buzzed. He read the text. He looked at the bartender. "Is the penthouse suite occupied?" The bartender, who had been briefed by Harrison, replied smoothly. "Yes, sir. By a Ms. Sinclair, I believe. Has been all day." Richard felt a cold, confusing prickle. Harrison had lied to him. Why? He looked at Chloe's text. He looked at the elevator bank. Something was wrong. He threw a $100 bill on the bar and strode back toward the lobby, a storm cloud on his face. "Harrison!" he bellowed. "What is going on?" But Mr. Harrison was no longer at the desk. The next 48 hours were a blur of calculated chaos. Eleanor, armed with the owner's protocol recordings, had her legal team work through the weekend. They drafted a comprehensive divorce filing, an injunction to freeze Richard's personal assets, and a motion to have him removed from their shared apartment, citing adultery, gross financial misconduct, and misappropriation of corporate funds. Meanwhile, in the penthouse, Chloe had become a petulant dragon in her hoard. She had ordered over $15,000 in in-room dining, $12,000 in additional spa treatments, and another $25,000 from the Bottega Veneta boutique, a new handbag, 3 pairs of shoes, and a coat. She was rude to the housekeepers, demanding they iron the air because it felt stuffy. She complained that the piano was out of tune. It was not. Richard had never made it to the room. After the bar incident, he had been intercepted by hotel security, who politely informed him that there was a mix-up, and Miss Sinclair was indisposed. He had stormed out in a rage, assuming Chloe was playing games, and spent the weekend fuming in his other secret apartment downtown. Now, it was Monday morning. Checkout time. Chloe Sinclair, hungover and irritable, came down the private elevator. She was wearing the new $25,000 Bottega outfit, carrying the new bag, and the $42,000 Graf necklace was around her throat. She looked, she thought, like the new Mrs. Andrea. She approached the checkout desk, where Mr. Harrison was waiting. "I'm checking out," she announced. "Just put the final bill on Richard's card." "Good morning, Ms. Sinclair," Mr. Harrison said, his smile perfectly, terrifyingly pleasant. "I trust your stay was memorable." "It was fine. The piano was out of tune. Now the bill, please." "Of course." Mr. Harrison turned to his monitor and printed a long, multi-page document. He slid it across the desk. "Here is the final folio." Chloe glanced at it. Her eyes widened. What is this? 197 Matrunstart to 150,022. "That is correct, ma'am," Harrison said. 2 nights in the presidential suite. In-room dining, extensive spa services, and purchases from our partners at Graf and Bottega Veneta. As you requested, it was all put on the room." This is insane," Chloe sputtered. "I just charge the card." "The black card." "Ah." Mr. Harrison's smile tightened. "That is the matter I need to discuss. You see, the card you presented is a secondary corporate card. All charges on this account, especially those of this magnitude, require direct, explicit authorization from the primary account holder. "Then get it!" Chloe shrieked. "Call Richard! He's the primary account holder!" "No, Miss Sinclair," a voice said. "He's not." Chloe spun around. Eleanor Andrea stood there. She was not in a gala gown. She was in a steel-grey Tom Ford pantsuit, her hair pulled back in a severe, elegant chignon. She looked less like a socialite and more like a predator. Chloe's eyes darted between Eleanor and Harrison. She still didn't get it. Who are you? His assistant? His accountant?" "Listen, lady, I'm in a hurry. Just run the card or I'll have your job." Eleanor laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. It was the sound of a vault door slamming shut. "My job?" Eleanor repeated. She took a step closer. "Ms. Sinclair, you've been living in my house, drinking my champagne, and wearing my jewelry. Though technically," she glanced at the necklace, "it's not yours, as you haven't paid for it." Your house?" Chloe stammered. "Mr. Harrison," Eleanor said, her voice cutting through the lobby. "Would you please introduce me?" Mr. Harrison stood straight, his voice ringing with a pride he could no longer contain. "Ms. Sinclair, may I present Mrs. Eleanor Andrea, the founder, CEO, and sole owner of the Andrea Hotel Group and this flagship property, the Serafina Grand." The blood drained from Chloe's face, leaving a pasty, grey mask beneath her expensive foundation. The words Mr. Harrison had just spoken seemed to hang in the air, thick and impossible. "Owner," Chloe repeated, her voice a dry, rasping whisper. She tried to laugh, but the sound was a strangled hic. "Owner? Of what? The gift shop?" She looked at Eleanor, truly looked at her for the first time. She saw the steel-grey Tom Ford suit, the severe, elegant chignon, the eyes that were not warm or kind, but cold and sharp, like chips of Arctic ice. This was not the boring, dried-up old stick she had imagined. "You," Chloe stammered, pointing a trembling, manicured finger. You're her. You're his wife." She said the word wife like it was a piece of rotten fruit, a thing to be discarded. "I am," Eleanor confirmed, her voice dangerously calm. "And I am also the primary signatory on the bank accounts from which you've been stealing for the past 48 hours. "Stealing?" Chloe yelped, clutching the Bottega bag to her chest as if it were a shield. "I'm not a thief. Richard gave me the card. He loves me. He's leaving you. He's divorcing you. He told me." "Did he?" Eleanor asked, her tone one of mild, academic curiosity. "Richard says many things." He is." Chloe was growing hysterical, her voice rising, echoing in the cavernous, suddenly silent lobby. The other guests, a mix of diplomats and old-money tourists, had stopped their quiet conversations. They were all watching. "He's on his way right now. He's coming to get me. And we're going to... As if summoned by her desperate, delusional shriek, the massive inlaid wood front doors of the Serafina Grand burst open. Richard Andrea stormed in. He was not the cool, collected lion of Wall Street. He was a rumpled, furious, and paranoid man. He hadn't slept. He had spent the last 48 hours in his downtown apartment, fuming, his calls to Chloe going straight to her in-suite voicemail, which she'd been too busy with champagne and spa treatments to check. He had come here to confront her, to demand an explanation for her games. And then he saw his wife. He froze. His world, his entire, carefully constructed house of cards, teetered on the brink. "Richard!" Chloe shrieked, a wave of pure, triumphant relief washing over her. She saw his arrival not as the collision it was, but as her salvation. The cavalry had arrived. "Richard, thank God, tell her. Tell this bitch who you're with. Tell her you're leaving her. Tell her to stop harassing me." She ran toward him, a giddy, stumbling run, and tried to link her arm through his. Richard flinched away from her touch, as if she were a leper. His eyes were locked on Eleanor, his face a mask of pleading, panic, and rage. "Eleanor," he said, his voice a low, strangled growl. What are you doing here? This is a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Eleanor repeated, her voice light. She took a step forward, and the entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. "Hello, Richard. You're looking stressed. I thought you were in Geneva. The consortium deal, wasn't it? It closed early," he stammered, trying to regain his footing, to find the old, familiar script where he was in charge. This is a client, Eleanor. Ms. Sinclair. A potential investor. There's been a mix-up with her room. It's a mess. Harrison, what is going on here?" He tried to pivot, to put the staff on the defensive. It was a classic Richard Andrea move. It didn't work. "A client?" Eleanor's eyebrow raised a perfect, skeptical millimeter. "A client named Chloe? A client you booked into my presidential suite? The one I keep for royalty and heads of state? A client you gave your corporate card to?" Richard blanched. How did I know?" Eleanor's voice was still soft, but it was gaining a razor's edge. "Richard, you are a man of simple appetites. You're predictable, and you're sloppy. You see, the card you gave her, it's not your card. It's my card. You're just a secondary user on my corporate account, the one tied to my hotel. And when a secondary user tries to book the most expensive suite in the building for his client, the primary account holder gets a notification." She turned her gaze to Chloe, who looked as if she'd been slapped. "And you, Ms. Sinclair, you were quite prolific. You're not just a client, you're an accomplice. In the last 48 hours, you've racked up nearly $200,000 in charges. But you didn't just spend my money. You felt the need to brag." "What?" Chloe whispered. "The owner's protocol, darling," Eleanor said, glancing at Richard. "A delightful security feature, activated when a guest is, let's say, high risk. We have recordings of everything." Chloe's hands flew to her mouth. "Yes," Eleanor said, nodding. "We have the recording of your 4:32 p.m. call on Saturday to a Brenda, where you detailed, in rather colourful language, your plans, how you were living the life you deserved, how you were kicking the old hag out, how my husband was divine, and finally leaving that dried-up old stick of a wife. Was that me, Miss Sinclair? Am I the dried-up old stick?" The lobby was so quiet you could hear the whir of the ventilation. "Oh, and my personal favourite," Eleanor continued, her voice relentless. "Your social media post, from the suite, tagging my hotel, a selfie with the black card, #upgrade, #queen, and the one that I think my lawyers will enjoy the most, #by Eleanor. You didn't just have an affair, you tried to brand it. You tried to build your new life on the ashes of mine, in my house. That was a mistake." Richard finally found his voice. It was a roar. "Enough! Eleanor, enough! This is a private matter. You will stop this. Now. You can't. You're slandering me." "Slander," Eleanor mused, "is spoken. Libel is written. And what I have, Richard, is evidence." She snapped her fingers. Not loudly, just a sharp, dry click. Mr. Harrison, who had been standing at parade rest, stepped forward. "Richard," Eleanor said, "this Private matter, as you call it, is also known as gross financial misconduct, embezzlement, and misappropriation of corporate funds, all of which are explicitly forbidden in our prenuptial agreement. Specifically, the financial malfeasance clause, the one you thought was just boilerplate. You wouldn't, Richard whispered, the blood draining from his face. I already have, Eleanor stated. A process server visited your office at 9:01 a.m. this morning. You've been served. Divorce proceedings. You bitch, he roared, lunging forward. He didn't get 2 steps before the 2 hotel security guards, Frank and another man who looked like a linebacker, had him by the arms. He hadn't even seen them move. Oh, it gets better, Eleanor said, walking calmly toward him as he struggled against the guards. A separate motion was filed, an emergency injunction granted by Judge Miller at 9:30 a.m., freezing all your personal assets, your trading accounts, and your slush fund in the Caymans. He stopped struggling. He just stared at her, his mouth open. The Caymans? Oh yes, she smiled, a terrible, cold, brilliant smile. That little consulting account you've been siphoning money into for 3 years. Did you think I didn't notice the rounding errors in the quarterly reports? You have no money, Richard. As of 9:01 a.m., you don't even have a home. The doorman at our building has been instructed not to let you enter. Your clothes are being boxed as we speak. You're out. You're out of the company. You're out of the apartment. And you're out of my life. He was panting, a trapped, defeated animal. You can't. I made you. It was the line she had been waiting 15 years to hear, the final pathetic lie of a desperate man. She stepped so close she could smell the 500-a-bottle scotch on his breath. You made me what? She asked, her voice a low, lethal whisper only he could hear. You made me silent. You made me patient. You made me miserable. I made myself rich. You were just overhead. And I am always cutting costs. She straightened up, her face returning to a mask of cool professionalism. Frank, Mr. Andrea is no longer an officer of this company. He is not a guest. He is in fact a liability. He is officially trespassed from this property. Please, escort him out. Yes, Mrs. Andrea. You can't do this to me, he bellowed, finding his voice one last time as they began to move him toward the door. This is my hotel. My name is on the wall. No, sir, Mr. Harrison said, his voice ringing with the clear, cold authority of the victor's lieutenant. It has never been your hotel. Eleanor, he roared as the glass doors slid open, the sound of the New York street rushing in. The guards propelled him through, his bespoke suit rumpled, his face purple, his dignity gone. The doors slid shut with a quiet, pneumatic hiss. Richard Andrea was gone. The lobby was utterly, profoundly silent. Every eye was now on the 2 women left in the center, the Queen and the Jester. Chloe Sinclair, who had watched her savior, her future, and her entire world be summarily executed and ejected onto the sidewalk, sank to her knees. She was no longer a queen. She was just a girl in a very, very expensive coat, with a very, very big bill. And she was all alone. Eleanor Andrea watched her for a moment, an entomologist studying a particularly uninteresting insect. Then she turned her cold, appraising gaze back to the woman who had, just moments ago, tried to steal her life. Now, Eleanor said, as if they were the only 2 people in the room, the matter of your checkout. All eyes in the lobby were now on Chloe. The hushed, cathedral-like atmosphere of the Serafina Grand had become a silent amphitheater, and she was the only one on the stage. She was trembling, a gaudy, desperate figure in a borrowed costume. The $25,000 Bottega coat felt like a lead shroud, the $42,000 Graf necklace a cold, heavy noose. "So," Eleanor said, her voice dropping no more than a few decibels, yet it cut through the silence like a surgeon's blade. "The bill, $104,450.22. Chloe's mind, sluggish from champagne and shock, tried to process the number. It was abstract. It was impossible. It was a typo. "No," Chloe whispered, the word dry and cracked. She tried to laugh, a pathetic, high-pitched sound that died in her throat. That's a joke. A mistake. You can't be serious. Just run the card. Richard's card." "The card," Eleanor said, as if explaining a complex concept to a small, dim-witted child, "is irrelevant. The card is his. The debt, Miss Sinclair, is yours. You signed the check-in registration. You accepted the terms." I can't," Chloe whispered, the tears finally coming. They were hot, ugly tears of panic and champagne, tracking black mascara down her cheeks. "I can't pay it. Please, Richard will pay it. He loves me." "Love?" Eleanor almost smiled. "Richard, as you've seen, is not in a position to love or to pay. His assets, his accounts, his entire slush fund, as he so charmingly calls it, were frozen by a court order at 9:01 a.m. this morning. He is, for all intents and purposes, destitute. He is a line item in my list of bad investments, one I am now liquidating." The reality of her situation was a physical blow. Chloe stumbled back a step, her hand flying to the necklace. But he gave it to me. He told me. He said he was leaving you. He said you were nothing." "He says many things," Eleanor replied, her voice dangerously soft. "He's a man of simple appetites and even simpler ethics. He thought Andrea was his name. He forgot it was my name first. He forgot this entire empire is mine. He's a guest in my world. And so, Miss Sinclair, are you, a guest who has wildly overstayed her welcome and run up an extraordinary tab." Richard, who had been standing to the side, a statue of impotent rage, finally found his voice. It was a roar, but it was thin, reedy. "Eleanor, enough. This is unseemly. In public, you're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" Eleanor turned to him. The full, icy focus of her attention was a palpable force. "Embarrassment, Richard? Is that what you felt when you were booking my penthouse suite under a false pretense? When you were using my company's money to woo this?" She gestured to Chloe, a dismissive flick of her wrist. It was a mistake," he stammered, pulling at his collar. A moment of madness." "Eleanor, please, we can talk about this. In private. In your office. I'll pay for it. I swear I'll pay the bill. Just let's not make a scene." Eleanor let the silence stretch, a beautiful, agonizing pause. "Pay for it?" she asked, her tone one of genuine curiosity. "With what, Richard? With the court order that was just served at your office? The one that freezes your personal accounts, your trading accounts, and your slush fund in the Caymans?" "Oh yes," she added, seeing his face go white. "I know about that too. That little consulting account you've been siphoning money into for 3 years. Did you think I didn't read the quarterly reports? Did you think I didn't notice the rounding errors?" She took a step toward him. He instinctively recoiled. "You have no money, Richard. As of 9:01 a.m., you don't even have a home. The doorman at our building has been given your photo with instructions not to let you enter. Your clothes, your ridiculous, overpriced suits, and your other toys are being boxed. They'll be sent to a storage unit in New Jersey. A prepaid one, of course. I'm not a monster. I'm just thorough. You can't," he whispered. He was broken. The Lion of Wall Street was a declawed, defanged kitten. Eleanor, Ellie, think of our name, our life." "You are the one who soiled it, Richard," Eleanor said, her voice now flat, devoid of all emotion. "I'm just cleaning it." She turned her back on him, a final, brutal dismissal. Security. The two large guards who had been standing by the elevator stepped forward. They were silent, their movements efficient. "Mr. Andrea," one of them said, his voice polite but unyielding, "you are officially trespassed from this property. Please leave, or we will be forced to have you removed." "You can't do this to me, Eleanor!" he roared, a last, pathetic burst of bravado. "I made you." This, finally, made Eleanor stop and look back. A small, genuine smile touched her lips. "No, Richard, you didn't make me. You made me miserable. I made myself rich. Goodbye, Richard." The guards didn't need any further instruction. They took his arms. He didn't fight. He was a hollow man. He stumbled as they escorted him, his $10,000 Brioni suit rumpled, his face a mask of utter, public, and permanent defeat. The automatic glass doors slid open, revealing the grey, indifferent street. And then he was gone. The lobby was absolutely, breathtakingly silent. Every guest, every staff member was frozen. Then Eleanor turned back to Chloe. The full weight of her isolation, her stupidity, her doom, crashed down on Chloe Sinclair. She was alone. He was gone. The money was gone. No. Chloe suddenly became a whirlwind of frantic, desperate action. "No, I'll give it back! I'll give it all back!" She started clawing at the Graf necklace. The clasp was intricate, a tiny platinum puzzle she was too panicked to solve. Her freshly manicured nail snapped, a sharp click in the silence. With a shriek of frustration, she ripped the $42,000 piece of diamond-encrusted art from her neck. It hit the marble floor with a sickening, expensive clatter and skittered to a stop near Eleanor's foot. "Here!" she screamed, tears and spittle flying. "Take it, and this!" She tore the Bottega bag from her shoulder and threw it at Eleanor's feet. It landed with a soft, leathery thud. "The coat! The shoes! I'll go upstairs, I'll take it all off. We can just pretend this never happened. We can reverse the charges. It's fine. See? It's fine." Eleanor looked down at the pile of luxury goods on her pristine floor. She didn't flinch. She didn't move. She just looked back up at Chloe. "Pretend?" she repeated, as if the word were foreign. "You think this is a game? You think you can just return your consequences?" Mr. Harrison stepped forward, his face a mask of professional duty. "Ma'am," he said, addressing Chloe but looking at Eleanor. "That is not, in fact, fine. The Graf necklace, having been worn and now thrown, will have to be inspected for microfractures and recertified by the jeweler. It is at best pre-owned. The Bottega coat has your perfume on it, not to mention your distress. The bag is scuffed from your tantrum. You've devalued these items by at least 60% simply by touching them." Eleanor picked up where he left off, her voice a relentless, logical drumbeat. "And the rest? The services? The $2,400 bottle of 98 Rosé? You drank it. The $5,000 four-hands massage. You enjoyed it. The $15,000 of in-room dining. I trust it's processing." A few guests in the lobby actually winced. "Those are sunk costs, Ms. Sinclair," Eleanor continued. "Theft. You consumed services you could not pay for, with no intention of ever paying for them. You are not just a bad investment. You are a common thief. A very, very expensive common thief who just provided us with a wealth of evidence." "No." This was a wail. Chloe sank to her knees, the magnificent coat puddling around her on the floor. She was no longer a siren, no longer a queen. She was just a girl from a small town who had made a terrible, life-altering mistake. She crawled forward, a supplicant at the altar, and grabbed the hem of Eleanor's pantsuit. "Please, please, Mrs. Andrea. Eleanor, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Eleanor looked down at the woman clutching her ankle, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated disgust. He told me," Chloe sobbed, her words muffled. "He said that you were nothing. He said it was all his. He lied to me. I'm a victim, too. Can't you see? I'm a victim." This final, pathetic, cowardly lie was what broke the ice. The cold calm in Eleanor's eyes shattered, replaced by a sudden, terrifying magma. A victim? Eleanor's voice was so low, so venomous, that Chloe actually recoiled, letting go of her pantsuit. "A victim?" Eleanor repeated, louder this time. You sat in my presidential suite, a room I designed, on furniture I selected. You drank my finest champagne. You ordered my staff around like slaves. You posted on social media, tagging my hotel, with the hashtag, what was it? Oh yes, by Eleanor. You celebrated my erasure. You danced on what you thought was my grave. You weren't a victim. You were an accomplice. A giddy, stupid, and frankly, tacky accomplice to a man who was robbing me. And you were doing it for... what? She gestured to the pile of discarded luxury. For trinkets, for a handbag and a necklace. You sold, whatever soul you might have had, for things. You didn't even aim for the company. You aimed for the swag bag. Eleanor took a step back, putting distance between herself and the weeping woman. You, and women like you, you're not interested in building anything. You're parasites. You find men like Richard, weak, vain, arrogant men, and you attach yourselves, and you suck them dry. But you made one fatal, catastrophic mistake, Miss Sinclair. You attached to a man who was, himself, a parasite on me. And the host, Eleanor said, tapping her own chest lightly, the host just noticed. You wanted power. You wanted to be me. You thought being Mrs. Andrea was about wearing pretty dresses and cutting ribbons at galas. You have no idea, do you? You have no idea what it is to sit in a 20-hour negotiation for a land deal in Tokyo, or to stare down a board of directors who think you're too emotional to make a hard decision, or to read a complex derivatives trading report and find a $2 million discrepancy that your husband, the lion, calls a rounding error. You don't know what it's like to wake up at 4 a.m., not from a bad dream, but to get on a call with Hong Kong while the man beside you sleeps the untroubled sleep of the monumentally ignorant. That is power, Miss Sinclair. It's work, it's solitude, it's blood and sleepless nights, and a precision of thought you couldn't even begin to comprehend. You wanted the title. I built the empire. There is a difference. You are a footnote. I am the author. Eleanor's chest was heaving, not from exertion, but from the sudden, violent release of 15 years of swallowed rage. She composed herself instantly. The mask of ice slipped back into place. The show was over. She turned away from the sobbing wreck on the floor. "Mr. Harrison," she said, her voice once again all business. "She's soiled the marble with her theatrics. Please call the New York Police Department. I want to file a report for grand larceny, theft of services, and credit card fraud. I want her prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. At once, Mrs. Andrea. Frank," she nodded to her head of security, who had been standing silently by the entire time. "You and your team will escort Ms. Sinclair to the security office. Confiscate her personal belongings, her real ones, not the ones she stole from me. Her phone, her wallet, her passport. They are to be held as collateral against the debt, which, let's be honest, it won't be paid. So they will be evidence. No, Chloe finally understood. This wasn't a bill, it was a sentence. She wasn't getting a lecture, she was getting arrested. She scrambled to her feet, her face a grotesque mask of terror. No, you can't! You're a monster! A cold-hearted witch! Eleanor Andrea paused, 1 foot forward, her back to Chloe. She looked back over her shoulder, her eyes as cold and brilliant as the graph diamonds on the floor. No, Miss Sinclair, she said, her voice clear and final. I'm not a witch. I'm the owner. And the owner always collects. Frank and another guard, a tall, impassive woman, moved in. They didn't grab Chloe. They simply flanked her. This way, Mum, Frank said, his voice quiet but absolute. Chloe looked at the 2 guards. She looked at the guests, all staring, their phones suddenly and conspicuously out. She looked at Mr. Harrison, who was already on the phone, his voice calm. Yes, Sergeant, I'd like to report a fraud in progress. The suspect is currently in our custody. She looked back at Eleanor, who was already walking away. Please, Chloe whispered, one last time. But there was no one left to listen. Her shoulders slumped. The fight was gone. She was limp, a puppet with its strings cut, as the guards firmly, professionally, and terrifyingly guided her toward a service elevator, away from the light, away from the luxury, and toward the consequences she had so eagerly earned. The lobby was silent as the elevator doors dinged shut. Eleanor Andrea didn't look back. She walked to the center of her lobby, stopping to look down at the discarded necklace and bag. Mr. Harrison, she said as he finished his call. Yes, Mrs. Andrea? Have someone from maintenance? Collect that. Jewelry. Send it to our in-house counsel's office. It's evidence. The bag and coat, too. Bag them as biohazards. I don't want them contaminating the lost and found. Of course, Ma'am. And the penthouse. She sighed, looking up at the ceiling high above. It needs to be purified. Get a full deep cleaning crew. I want every surface scrubbed. Age it if you must. Burn incense. I want the scent of desperation and cheap perfume gone by this afternoon. The Prince of Dubai is arriving tomorrow, and he's a very important client. He appreciates a clean environment, Ma'am, Harrison said, a shadow of a smile playing on his lips. He does indeed, Eleanor replied. I will see to it personally. She smoothed the front of her Tom Ford jacket, her poise perfect, her world reordered. She walked toward the private elevator bank, the one that led to her corporate offices, her real home. As she walked, the lobby slowly came back to life. A bellman picked up a suitcase, a receptionist answered a call, the quiet murmur of civilized life resumed. The Queen was on her throne. The kingdom was secure. Eleanor pulled out her phone, the work device. Barbara, she said into it, as the golden elevator doors slid open, encasing her in light. Patch me back into the London call. Yes. My apologies for the delay, gentlemen. I had to take out the trash. The door slid shut. Her reflection, calm, steady, and already calculating the profits from the London acquisition, was the last thing to be seen. And just like that, the trap snapped shut. Chloe Sinclair checked out of the penthouse and into a police holding cell, trading a $20,000 a night suite for a $200,000 debt. Richard Andrea went from a titan of Wall Street to a man with nothing but a bespoke suit and a trespassing order. And Eleanor? Eleanor proved that the quietest person in the room is often the most powerful. Betrayal always has a price. In this case, it was $127,450.22, plus interest. What did you think of Eleanor's ultimate revenge? Was it too harsh, Or did Chloe and Richard get exactly what they deserved? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you love stories of karma and justice, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with a friend who loves drama, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel so you never miss a single story. We see you, we appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next video.